Hi everyone, welcome back to Java 1 for All. And in this video, we are going to talk about the static modifier. So let's start with one tiny example. But before that, let's create a new package. This one will be called F static modifier. And the same thing, we are going to create a new package with domain. So let's start with a class called car. And to use as an example, we can think about Germany. The German companies, they have a gentleman's agreement that, except Porsche, that all the cars, they should have a limiter. So they are electronically limited to 250 kilometers per hour. I think 155 miles per hour. And this can be used as an example of how the static modifier could be useful. So for example, imagine that we have three attributes. The first one will be the name. This will be the brand name, to keep things simple. And the next one will be max speed. And then speed limit. So let's create getters and setters for everything. Getters and setters. And then out insert to create the getters and setters. Let's just initialize this with 250. And to make things a bit more simple, let's create a constructor and let's select only name and max speed because speed limit is already initialized. So select both of them and press OK. Now we have a constructor with name and max speed. Let's create a print method. So public void print, and let's just prettify a little bit. Now the name, Control D, Control D. Okay, so now we are going to create a package called test. Just right click, package, delete domain only, and then test, and then out insert. Sorry, in my case I have to select it first. Out insert, class, and car test 01. So PSVM, let's create a couple cars here. We do have another one inside the introduction classes package. Be careful to import from static modifier package. Car1, new car, and let's say this is BMW, and then max speed, let's say that is 270. This is a double, 270. Control D, just rename 2, 3, and then give different names, Mercedes, and also Audi. And max speed for Mercedes is 285 and Audi 290 kilometers per hour. So basically what we have here is three cars that if we call car1.print, car2.print, and car3.print. If I don't talk about the shortcut I'm using, just pay attention to the bottom and you will see. Ctrl Shift F10. So we have three cars and all of them, they have the same speed limit. So basically what we have here is three objects, 1, 2, 3. They are both, they are all of them cars object, and inside, of course, we have all the attributes, but we also have the speed limit. Let's just, so imagine that we have all name and the maximum speed, but we have speed limit here inside. So all of them, they are cars. So basically, they are objects, they are instances of the car class. Okay, so far so good, but remember, the gentleman's agreement means that all cars created, they need to have the speed limit 250. So what happens if I come here, for example, to my car1 dot set speed limit, and we change it to, for example, 180. So if I execute this code now, we will get the first car, that's the BMW, the car one, with 180, and all of the rest 250. So basically this one now is 180, and all of them, the others, are 250. You could say, well, we can make this speed limit private and remove the access modifier, so all of them will have the same speed limit forever. Yes, but the problem is we are still talking about instances. So right now, the 250, the speed limit, and all the other objects, they belong to an instance, to the object. And what we want here is something that belongs to the class itself. So something that it doesn't matter how many objects we create, all of them will have exactly the same speed limit. Even if I change, I'm going to apply this change to all the objects. I don't want that to belong to the object anymore. I want them to belong to the car class itself. So that's how we are going to use the static. So basically, the static is a keyword in Java that you can add after the access modifier or before the access modifier. You cannot add after the type. So it's either before or after the access modifier. And one thing is, the convention says you should add always after the access modifier. So this should be the order you should follow. And now by doing this, we are telling, hey, speed limit belongs to the car class, not to the object itself. And whatever you do, whatever you change, it's going to apply to all instances of this class. And let's execute again. You will notice that all the cars, even though we changed through the first instance, the car one that's referring to this object, we changed it through here, and everything, as you can see, changed, all the objects. So now this 250, it doesn't belong to the object anymore. Now this 250, that's what we are initialized, it belongs to the car. So basically now it's something like this. It doesn't belong to the instance of the object anymore. It belongs to the class itself. So we don't have this value here anymore. So how can we access through the word this? Because remember, this is referring to the object and the values inside that object. Well, you can access because, well, if you have access to the class, you have access to the attribute, but the accessing through the keyword this, like we have here on car, is wrong. And IntelliJ is saying, hey, you should not access the static member through an instance reference. Why? Well, because as you can see here, this is pretty confusing. If you give this to someone else and you ask, hey, what's the speed limit for car 1? And they will say probably 180. And what's the speed limit for the car 2? So they don't know. They will probably, if they have access to the class, they would, without seeing the static here, they would say 250, because we are changing through the instance. So we don't want to do that. And here is the same thing. You don't want to access through the instance this. You want to access through the class. So the correct way would be to call the class name dot the attribute. So you're saying now I'm accessing something that belongs to the class, not the instance, not to that object space in memory. Now before we talk about access modifier and the static access modifier and the method, let's just delete these two and let's make this guy public for a better example. So what you're saying here is that speed limit belongs to the class car, and whatever I do to it, it will apply to all objects. So here the correct way would be car from the package static modifier dot and then speed limit. So this is attribute. You can just initialize like this. So now everyone looking at this code is realize that I'm changing something that is static, and all the objects will automatically get this new value. So if I run Shift F10, we still have the value. So basically, William, you're saying that we don't need to have an object to have static modifiers initialized? No, we don't need. So if I come here and I call car dot speed limit, so I don't have any instances. I don't have anything at this moment. I only have the class. And by executing this code, you will see that we have the 250. So when you have something that it is static, you do not need to have an object. You don't need anything initialized at all. So when you run the Java class, this will be initialized by the time they are reading all the classes in the project, and then we will get our value. But we are going to talk about that later. What you have to remember now is that when you add static to an attribute, that attribute does not belong to an instance anymore. It belongs to the class itself, and everything you do is going to affect all objects created from that class. So that's why here now, not here, here, the 250, or if I change 280, is going to apply to all the objects. So basically, you have like a metadata here that's 180. That's going to be applied to all the objects. So one object here, this object here, and this one here. This is pretty ugly. There you go. So the 180 is coming from the class, and it will be applied to all instances of this object. I'm saying 180 because I'm imagining that we are talking from this point onwards. Even though they are already created, you can change it. But for example, if I, of course, add after car print car1.print, I'm going to get here 250 because, well, we executed. But after that, if I execute again car1.print, you will see that we have BMW 250 and BMW 180. So it will start changing after the point where this line is. Okay, so I think that's enough information. So I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next class. Bye.